A music magazine is a magazine dedicated to music and is used for three main reasons. The first reason being to target a specific audience, the second being to make money or profit, and the third being to advertise, and that's the main way that music magazines make their money. A conglomerate is a company made up of subsidiaries, which are companies that are known as parent or sister companies. Since a conglomerate is made up of these parents or sister companies or subsidiaries, it means that they have something known as cross-media ownership. This basically means that they're allowed to advertise their brand among different platforms, e.g. radio, TV, magazines and things like that. The two biggest media conglomerates, and the ones that I'll be looking at in this video, are Bauer Media and IPC Media. In this diagram here, it shows you the structure for the conglomerate Bauer. As you see here, Bauer are owners of 63 UK magazines, be it music, fiction or any type of magazine, they will own it. Bauer have a second division known as Bauer Media. In this we see that they own two big radio stations, one national and one local. Bauer Media and Channel 4 each chipped in 50% to buy the TV channel Box TV. This is known as a joint venture, and with this it means that they can cross-advertise even more with the use of cross-media ownership. An independent company is also a company that makes different forms of media, but instead of using subsidiaries, they are just one lone company. Most of the magazines that are made by independent companies will either be free or really cheap, and the funding for them will usually come from advertising mainly. Advertisers still like to advertise in magazines for one specific reason, and that is that magazines aim towards one particular target audience and cater to that audience as well. Meaning that advertisers can pick their products and put them into specific magazines so that a specific audience who will most likely buy that product will see it and want to buy it. The key age group that advertisers aim towards are generally 16 to 24 year olds. The reason for this is because they're the age group that has something called disposable income, which is basically like pocket money, and they have money spare so they can spend on whatever they want. In 1991, Yang Ang wrote a book called Desperately Seeking the Audience, which is a book explaining the manner in which companies find their audiences. The idea in the book that was put forward was the idea of something that companies use called an imaginary entity, which is something that they use that represents the ideal audience member. As an example here, I've shown what Kerrang have as their ideal audience member. They've actually given theirs a name, Jim, and have said that he's a 25-year-old male who loves and lives and breathes rock. Readership and circulation are two phrases used commonly in magazines. Readership is the number of people who actually read the magazine. As you can imagine, this number is always higher than circulation, since one copy that someone buys will always or more or less be read by two or more people. Circulation is simply the number of copies that the magazine sells. This is accounted for and can be found within magazines in their media packs. The ABC, or the Audit Bureau of Circulation, is a non-profitable auditing organisation. It audits the readership, circulation and audience information for specific magazines and newspapers. They provide the real and verified information on buying and selling of media. The definition of a music magazine is a magazine that is dedicated to music culture, and they include news, interviews, photo shoots, essays, record reviews, concert reviews, and occasionally have a cover mount with recorded music. Bauer Media is one of, if not the biggest magazine/media companies in the world, and is the biggest in the UK. They own three of the most popular magazines, as you can see by the images below. The magazines Bauer own are Kerrang, Mojo and Q. IPC Media are again a huge company that sell multiple global magazine brands. However, they aren't as big as Bauer and they don't rank as high when it comes to global popularity. The huge music magazines that they own are NME and Uncut. Future Publishing is an independent company, however they are one of the biggest in the UK and one of the biggest that I know. Out of the three companies we've so far, these make the most. They make 4 music magazines, the first being electronic, classic rock, prog and metal hammer. Subgenres are a bit weird to explain. If you imagine metal, there are probably different forms of metal, for example death metal, punk metal and things like that. Some music magazines however do include information about different subgenres. For example, Kerrang does contain something about progressive rock or maybe indie rock. However, there are some magazines which are based purely around subgenres. For example, take Prog magazine, made by Future PLC. This is a progressive rock magazine and it's dedicated to progressive rock fans. Whereas the audience might be a lot smaller compared to other genres, the audience is a lot more specific, so that means advertisers will like advertising these kind of magazines. In terms of demographic, each magazine falls into two different genres. They're either mainstream, which basically means that a lot of people know about them and they're basically known more or less worldwide or nationally, or fall into something called niche, which basically only a few people know about it. For an example of a mainstream magazine, in my opinion, Kerrang and Q are probably two of the most mainstream magazines that I can think of. Almost everyone I know has owned or either at least heard of these kind of magazines. Whereas something like Metal Hammer is probably more catered towards niche, as not many people listen to metal and not many people would probably follow the metal scene. Personally I would, but not many people would. Much like for subgenres, whereas there may be niche kinds of magazines, advertisers will still look to advertising these kinds of magazines as they're more specific towards one specific audience. Looking at the Kerrang reader, we see that 54.7% of the Kerrang readers are male. We also see that 51% of them fall into something called the ABC1 category, which basically means that they have a lot of money and have a lot of income that they can use to spend on magazines and other products made by this brand. If you also look at the age range, you see that the general age range is 64 to 24 is the most popular, which is the main age and range that advertisers look for when it comes to magazines, as these are the ones with the most disposable income. Looking to the right, we also see the circulation, readership and ABC1 profile and mean age of the Kerrang magazines. But we also see something that says Solace readership, which basically means readers that only read Kerrang. Again, here we see the main thing for the Q reader. The main gender is 68.3% being male, and the main age is 35.5% being 16 to 24. We also see that 70% of them are in ABC1 profile. Here we see the key stats for NME. 63% of the people who buy this are male, the median age is again around 25, and the ABC1 profile is around 47%. The strange thing about this though is that it also shows the students who buy this and how many of them who actually are students, and that's 26%. Since NME know this, they probably will cater some of their magazines towards students, and that's probably where they get a lot of sales from. As you see here with the picture on the right, it shows Lana Del Rey and it says I am a psycho, and it shows the image of her looking quite rebellious, which is something that students probably fit under and it relates to them. The final part I should go into detail with is something known as cross-media ownership. Magazines will use cross-media ownership to sell their brand among multiple different platforms. For example, as you see on the left hand side, Kerrang uses Download Festival, Kerrang Radio, the Kerrang Awards and Kerrang TV to advertise the brand. And on each of those will probably advertise the different brands as well. For example, radio will advertise the festival and so on and so forth, so never in the cycle. As you see on the right, we have the Q iPad app, and we also see the Q radio. Most big brands will advertise their things among multiple platforms just so they can get more money, more advertisers. And the main aim of the magazine, after all, and the main aim of the company is to make profit, and this does it really well.